So having a look at kind of automation 101, and we're going to recap a little bit of what we just covered a second ago. So while automation can significantly streamline SEO tasks, it's essential to note that SEO requires a human touch. It requires an SEO to build a relationship with a client. Automation tools, they provide data and insights, but interpreting those, actually understanding the nuances of that, and of course, building that genuine relationship with clients is always going to require a personal touch and connection. Automation should be viewed as a way to help in the kind of the wider SEO process, making those repetitive tasks more manageable, of course, but not replacing the need for skilled SEO professionals. There's still going to need to be someone on the other side of the data kind of interpreting what it is that these tools and these automations effectively spit out. So why should you even care about it? Everyone should care about automation, and using it effectively should absolutely be a key consideration. There's a number of reasons why, so I've touched on these briefly, but the time savings. If you automate something well, it can handle repetitive tasks, freeing up time for more valuable activities. So to do that stuff you actually care about. Tasks are always going to be completed the same way. So if you have a specific automation, it's going to carry out those tasks or those steps that you've given it the exact same way every single time. It's going to help reduce human error. I know if I do something in the morning and I do something in the evening, there's going to be a difference in quality between those two pieces of work. Scalability. So effective automation allows for pretty much unlimited scaling without also having to linearly increase the amount of effort or money that you spend on it. So a good example is kind of automating an email campaign. If, as an individual, I wanted to send out 10 emails, okay, cool, I can write 10 emails, that's fine. But then your boss comes to you and says, hey, I need to write 1,000 emails. You're probably not going to do that all manually. You're going to get a process to do that. The process to write those 10 or 1,000 using an automation, it's basically the same. Cost efficiency. So some automations are going to require an initial cost. You're going to have to spend some money or investment to kick things off. Over time, automation helps reduce the costs that are associated with human error, inefficiencies, and labor. And of course, we've got employee empowerment. Even without deep level technical expertise and that deep level knowledge, a lot of tools and technology and therefore automations help allow anyone to kind of set these up, empowering them to become more productive and more efficient. And there's a few basic principles that we should have a look at. So we've touched on these briefly, but first up is to identify repetitive tasks. Then we've got to choose that right tool for the job. So how we're going to kind of automate it. Then, of course, we've got to implement and then monitor, and then ongoing optimization. And we'll touch on these a little bit more in a second. So when it comes to identifying repetitive tasks, we need to identify anything that we do on a regular basis to start automating effectively. Extra points are awarded, of course, for those tasks that consume considerable time or those that require minimal decision making. So a couple of examples include, if we're doing just general data entry and manipulation, perhaps we're sending reminder emails to our clients, generating reports. And a good way to approach this is to document everything that you do in a week or a fortnight or a month or over a specific amount of time. And any tasks that repeats within that time frame or a task that follows a clear set of steps is something that we should consider automating. And once we've identified those tasks that we believe that we can automate, it's time to identify the tools that can help us achieve the automation that we're looking for. We need to be able to take a couple of factors into account. So of course, including budget, how much can we actually spend? If we've got an unlimited budget, we can go and buy like the most expensive tools and hey, everything's great. That isn't necessarily the kind of case with a lot of situations. Sometimes you have a very limited budget to be able to kind of automate stuff, at least to start with, before you can start proving the benefit of it. And of course, the current skill level. Depending on that or that of our colleagues that we ask nicely to do things for us, we're going to be able to take different approaches. In addition to that, does that tool that you're thinking of getting, does it integrate well with other systems that you're currently using? So for example, if you use spreadsheets and you import CSV reports from various locations, does that tool that you're kind of thinking about, does it actually provide the correct CSV export that you're looking to kind of pull into that spreadsheeting software? Does it integrate well with your existing systems? Then we've of course got to set up the automation. This might involve, defining the workflow. So working out exactly how, defining what the exact process is that you follow. Create a diagram for this. Actually write out step by step. So if, for example, you're doing keyword research, write out every single step that you currently carry out, and then you can work out exactly what automation or what technology can help you with each individual step. Setting triggers, so when you want this automation to be running. We'll touch on this a little bit more within like Google Apps Script a little bit later on. But how often do you want this to run? Do you want it to kind of trigger on a specific day? Do you want it to run every day? Do you want it to run every month, every week, every time you send an email, for instance, or any other kind of trigger? And you've got to set those up effectively. It might also involve creating scripts or creating code. We'll then have to test this kind of code or this automation in real world situations to make sure that it works as expected. There's no point just creating an automation, putting it out there, sending it to your colleagues and saying, yeah, this works, without actually testing to make sure it actually does work as expected. And when an automation is set up, we need to review it and then ensure that it runs smoothly and serves its intended purpose. This will involve regularly checking it and making sure that there are no errors. You might notice that errors that you come across when you kind of release it to the wider world or to your colleagues that don't necessarily appear in initial testing. And something worth bearing in mind is that people are exceptionally good at breaking things in ways that you might not necessarily expect. So when that process is set up, it's just time to step back and then basically let it save you time. However, we don't want to leave it forever. We don't want to leave that kind of automation alone, as we can always improve on things. As an example, that first iteration of an automation might only do a single step of a multi-step process. So that workflow that you might have defined earlier on, you might only automate the first step of that workflow. It's important to always refine and improve for better results and overall efficiency. So you can do the first step, then move on to the second, then the third, then the fourth, and then you can tie it all together into this one big kind of tool or automation. It's important just to start small, to be honest. Just start with the small little things, and then you can kind of build on that. In addition to that, collect as much data as you can about using that specific automation. So how long did that specific task take before the automation? How long did keyword research take you, or the specific kind of task or specific step of this task? How long did that take you? How long does it take now? Does it take longer? Ideally, it shouldn't, because the whole point of automation is that it does it automatically and you don't have to kind of spend as much time on it. How much time and money is that automation then going to save over a week or a month or a year? Work out your hourly rate, work out how much time it's saved, and you multiply those two numbers together to work out how much you're saving. Cool.